We're here today to talk about county government in California. I remember when I was in school, which admittedly was a really long time ago, we spent a lot of time learning about the functions of the federal government, the three branches of government, checks and balances, separations of powers. We also spent some time doing cities. We actually got to spend a day with the mayor and city council and really learn about how city government responds to our local needs, parks and police and fire and those sorts of things. And I did some programs that taught me about state government, and we really interact with state government on a fairly regular basis in California. If we have to go to the DMV, for example, we know what state government does. But nobody ever taught me what counties do in California. And I assume that's still a gap in our education system today. I know most adults can't even tell me what a county does in California. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Why counties exist, what they're created, and what counties actually do. In California, there are 58 counties. They're created by the state. They're arms of state government. It's a little different than other parts of the United States where the county setup is different. So you can't apply this across the entire country, but it applies for most of the West. States created counties to carry out functions of state government that are just too difficult to do on a larger basis. And you can appreciate how in a state the size of California, it's just too much to do it for every corner of the state. Each of those 58 counties is governed by a board of supervisors. In 57 of those counties, there are 5 members of the board of supervisors. In the 58th county, that's San Francisco, it's a little different. It's a combination city and county, and they have a much larger city council combined board of supervisors group. But in most counties, including here in San Bernardino, we have 5 elected members of the Board of Supervisors who govern and serve as the policy-making body for the county. Each of the 5 of us are elected by district. So we take the population of the county, we divide it up equally so that we preserve the principle of one person, one vote. And the geography matters secondarily. We want to try to keep cities together. We want to try to keep communities of interest together. But we have to take the largest county in the United States, 22,000 square miles, and divide it equally in 5, even though we have a great portion of this county that is very sparsely populated. So I represent the 2nd district, which is right now the north end of Upland, all of Rancho Cucamonga, most of Fontana, and then the smaller communities along the mountains, Mount Baldy, San Antonio Heights, DeVore Heights, Lytle Creek, and the Rim of the World communities from Crestline all the way out to Running Springs and just about the Snow Valley Ski Resort. My other colleagues represent all the other areas of the county. The 5 of us come together to govern the county, and that means we're making the decisions at the really 30,000-foot level. We're not making the daily decisions of the 20,000 plus employees who work for the county. Let me tell you a little bit about what those 20,000 people do as part of their jobs, what sort of policies we make, and I'll be happy to take your questions after that. Counties in California have 4 functions that apply across all 58 counties. Then some counties have chosen for themselves some other important roles, and I'll talk to you about what we do in San Bernardino County that's unique for our region. So the first function of county governments in the state of California is to provide municipal-like services in areas that are not incorporated into cities. I know those are some big words, but not everybody lives in a city. If you think about the areas of my district that I just talked about, Mount Baldy, San Antonio Heights, Lytle Creek, the Rim of the World communities, there's a lot of people who live in those areas, and none of those are cities. So what happens when that person has a pothole on the road? If you live in a city and you drive over a pothole, you call City Hall, and they fix it. But if you live in one of those communities that's not a city, you call the county, and the county fixes your pothole. But the county doesn't provide a lot of services that you otherwise think about and get from a city. The most obvious is that counties aren't in the park and recreation business. We don't have small neighborhood parks where your kids can go and play on a swing set or even do a pickup basketball game. The counties are in the regional parks business. So we have very large parks, and you've probably been to some of them, Prado, Guasti, Lake Gregory, Glen Helen. Large facilities that you have to pay to get into, pay to park at, and you're usually there for some sort of special event, perhaps a company picnic or a family reunion. The second function of county government in California is law and justice. Think of this as our sheriff's department, including the jails, including an aviation program, cooperation with federal law enforcement agencies and state law enforcement agencies, and the support that the sheriff's department and our labs give to each city's police department. This includes the coroner's office, for example. But law and justice isn't just the law enforcement side. We also have the district attorney, the public defender, and our probation department. That's the largest part of the county's discretionary budget. I'll talk to you a little later about where our money comes from and how we spend it, but that law and justice group is about 80% of the county's discretionary money, so a really big chunk of what we do. The third function of county governments in California is regional backbone infrastructure and services. And the best example of infrastructure is something you probably see every day but never really think about. If you drive in our valley and you look up at the foothills, you see the flood control channels that start in the foothills and get rainwater or floodwater down out of our neighborhoods and out in a way to keep us safe. County flood control is a regional infrastructure system that would be really poorly done if every city and every neighborhood tried to do it on their own. Imagine flood control channels that don't connect to each other, or one city runs out of money and decides they're not going to do it anymore, and then the water just sits there. So that is a service that's better provided on a more regional basis. But it's not just physical infrastructure. Think about the other services in government that really need to be provided on a little bigger scale than an individual neighborhood or city can handle. Tax collection, for example. What if you had to write a different check for your sales tax, for your property tax, for every special fee you paid to every school district and every fire district? You as a taxpayer wouldn't do it, and you wouldn't do it correctly, and it would be very frustrating. So we have one county tax collector, you write one check, and then the county treasurer, tax collector, distributes that to the various entities that are entitled to part of those tax dollars. The fourth area that is the largest chunk of county government, both in terms of non-discretionary budget and employees, is Health and Human Services. It's the biggest number of employees, and it's the biggest chunk of our non-discretionary funding. It's billions and billions of dollars in the county of San Bernardino. And these aren't local tax dollars. This is money that the federal and state governments send to the county with the requirement that we spend it on the programs that they mandate to help individuals. Think about general aid and welfare, food for people who don't have food. We think of it as food stamps or your EBT cards. Requirements that we take care of both indigent children, so foster kids, adoption programs, and also indigent adults who don't have medical services or don't have their own faculties anymore and need to have an administrator handle their affairs. All of those programs are run by the county. We also provide services to folks who are addicted, services to people who have mental illness problems, and we run a very large county hospital. Counties are required to provide care for medically indigent adults. And in California, most counties have decided to simply contract with a private health care provider. But in the larger and more urbanized counties, we actually have a county hospital. Arrowhead Regional Medical Center in Colton serves all of the county and is our means of fulfilling that mandate. The Health and Human Services portion of our budget is about 3/4 of our overall budget, which right now runs just about $6 billion. So you can appreciate the incredible amount of money that comes in for caring for folks in our community who have needs. So those are the four functions of counties that every county in the state takes on. But in San Bernardino County, we have created a countywide vision that gives us a few extra things to do. Several years ago, we got together as a community and we had thousands and thousands of residents of the county talk about what we want to be. What do we want the future of San Bernardino County to look like? What do we want you to be able to hand over to your children as their future community? And the countywide vision turns out to be a really practical and yet poetic version of the kind of place we all want to live. It talks about being a complete community, And that means we want to have good schools, good jobs, good environment, natural surroundings that we respect and have good stewardship over, and good communities in how we interact with each other, how we serve those who are less fortunate, how we embrace the arts and reach a higher level as human beings. The vision captures all of that. And that means that we, as the elected leaders of the county, can't just look to those 4 official functions of county government, but have to take on a role as being the leaders of conversations, the conveners of community leaders, not just from government, but from the private sector and the nonprofit sector and our faith-based communities, who can really get together and tackle these challenges and these ideas and hopefully move us toward achieving that vision. For example, in what I talked about of our 4 functions, you never heard me say the county is in charge of schools. And yet if you ask people, what's the biggest issue facing our county, many of them will say they want better schools, better education. If you talk to employers, what do you need to see from the county? They will say, we need you to produce better prepared employees. So we need high school graduates who have better skills than we're seeing right now. And yet the county's not responsible for schools. The schools are on their own as separate entities, and yet they don't have the relationships with the business community and job creating sector that the county does. And so the county has taken on the role of getting people at the table to have the conversations. The universities, private and public, the job creators, the entrepreneurs, the K through 12 school systems, to sit together and talk about how can we do a better job of meeting the future needs of our community. That's not mandated by the state of California, but it is mandated by the people who live here and want to see our community thrive. It's the opportunity for us as a regional body to bring everyone together with a real recognition that government can't solve most problems. Most problems are solved by people with good hearts and good minds who want to help other people. But funding a lot of time comes through the government. So how do we, as the funders and those responsible for so many programs, make sure that we are getting the best and the brightest in our community, talking about them and working together to solve them? Well, we do that by working through the countywide vision. And we've seen it reap real rewards in the past few years, and we're excited that in the years to come, it's going to do much more. So that's officially what a county does in California. That's what we in San Bernardino County do, but it's not exhaustive. There's so much more. When we cover everything from jails to sentinel chickens, that's a big range of activities.